Harry swallowed. His joy at someone wanting to adopt him was short-lived, for he didn't think he wanted to be adopted by the man with the scary face, particularly if that wasn't a mask. Harry didn't want to consider himself shallow in caring about appearances only, but, well, the man was really scary looking. As if reading his thoughts, Emma said assuredly, "Don't worry, he really isn't as scary as he seems. He wants to help you. He helped us all. He helped all of us." "How did he help you?" Harry asked. Emma paused again, choosing her words. "We all came from bad families that hurt us. Mr. Boogie took us away after we had proved ourselves worthy to be his children." "How did you do that?" "I'll tell you that later, after you've watched the movies." She gestured at the projector. "You'll understand it better then." "So he adopted both you and Nicole?" Nicole nodded but remained silent. Emma spoke for both of them. "Yes, as well as many others. We have lots of brothers and sisters." "How many?" Emma and Nicole looked at each other and laughed. "Lots!" "Well, maybe he doesn't want another kid then," Harry suggested. "Maybe he feels he has too many mouths to feed already." Emma shook her head. "That isn't the case. He wouldn't be here if he didn't want to adopt you. And he can take care of us all. Don't you want to get away from these people?" "Of course, I'd like nothing better," Harry said earnestly. "Then why don't you sit down and watch a movie? That is a good way to show Mr. Boogie that you want him to adopt you." Harry agreed, though nervously looking upstairs. "Don't worry, they can't hear us," Emma assured him. Nicole went to the box and selected a cylinder as Harry sat down on the cold floor. She held it up excitedly. Emma smiled and took it, taking out the reel and threading it into the projector. Nicole smiled at Harry and sat next to him. Harry studied Emma and noticed that she was dressed in flannel footy pajamas. She was older than Nicole and probably was older than Harry by a couple of years. She was dressed too warmly for the weather. She had a knit cap on with a poof ball, and she wore an insulated blue jacket over her pajamas. She was a pretty girl. Her eyes and cheekbones looked like she was from Asian descent, but her coloring was pale. She had reddish curly hair and blue-gray eyes that seemed so light they were almost colorless. She looked back at them. "Ready?" Nicole and Harry nodded. Emma smiled and turned on the projector, then sat down on the other side of Harry. The film counted down from 3, and then it abruptly showed the outside of a house. It was dark outside. The camera looked through the front door, which was see-through because it had a glass window set inside it. Harry thought he could make out the blurred features of Mr. Boogie standing in the hallway inside the house. The camera then moved to a large window at the right. Inside there was a couple sitting on the couch watching TV. A young girl sat next to the woman, who was presumably her mother. The mother looked irritable and said something, and the girl moved to a chair with a huff. A few seconds later, another child, who Harry recognized as Nicole, sat down next to the mother. The mother, looking more irritable, picked up Nicole and slammed her down next to the man, who was probably her father. Nicole looked upset. Harry turned to Nicole, who was sullenly watching the movie. "Those were your parents?" Nicole looked at him and nodded seriously. Then she lifted her finger and went, "Shh." She pointed at the screen, indicating there was more to see. The scene had changed. It seemed even later that night. The camera was showing a lawnmower. The person holding the camera started it and then got behind to push it. The lawnmower went from pavement to grass, but it was nighttime and it was raining. Just as Harry was wondering who would mow their lawn in the rain and at night, too, he saw the lawnmower run over the mother he had seen earlier. Horrified, he watched as it mowed over the other young girl and the father. Harry felt bile come back up into his throat. He gulped it down, his stomach not appreciating getting it back. At the very end, you saw the lawn covered in blood. There were tied-up garbage bags. Suddenly, a figure walked in front of the camera. It was Nicole, dressed in the same raincoat she was wearing now. She looked at the camera, put a finger to her lips, and went, "Shh." Then she disappeared. The screen went white as the reel completed. Emma stood up to shut the projector off. Harry looked down at Nicole's stained raincoat and jeans, the stuff that looked like blood spatter. It might really be blood. It took Harry a few tries before he could successfully speak. Was that was that real, or was it some art film? Emma turned to look at him, her face serious. It was real, Harry. Harry turned to Nicole, who was no longer smiling. You killed your family? Nicole nodded solemnly. What? Why? Because Mr. Boogie asked her to, Emma said. Just like he asked all of us to. That is how you prove yourself, Harry. Harry was starting to think he should get up and get out of the basement right now, yet he felt glued to the floor. I know what you're thinking, Harry. Believe me, we all felt the same way after we watched our first movie. It seemed like such a terrible thing. Murder is wrong. Nicole nodded in agreement, her eyes misty. Emma stepped closer. But they deserved it, Harry. All of our families did. They were bad people, and it isn't really wrong to kill bad people. The world is better off without them, don't you think? Harry couldn't think. He had been trained that murder was wrong. Even if people were bad, you called the police to have them arrested. You didn't kill them. And yet, Harry would be lying to say he had never thought about killing the Dursleys or wishing that they would just die. There had been plenty of times after being punished that his heart had plotted revenge. Harry swallowed. Did you kill your family? Emma nodded. Yes. Would you like to see? Harry wasn't sure he wanted to see, but he didn't refuse. Emma, with a satisfied smile, fetched another canister that read Christmas morning. The projector flashed numbers again, and then it showed a large blue house. It was snowing outside. Harry realized that he was hearing music and looked at the projector, noticing for the first time that it had a record player. The scene changed, and once again the camera was looking through a window pane. There was a Christmas tree, and a family was coming down the stairs in their pajamas. Presents were everywhere, reminding Harry bitterly of Dudley's birthdays and Christmases. There were so many presents that they weren't just under the tree, but behind the couch and next to the end tables. The little girl was opening a gift that revealed a doll. She put it aside without a glance and went to open another present. The husband touched his wife's shoulder and showed her something inside a jewelry box, which she apparently liked a lot. It reminded Harry of the jewelry commercials that he sometimes saw on the telly. The film seemed to be edited to jump a little while later. The little girl was being praised by her father as she successfully kept a hula hoop going around her waist. The mother was straightening a mascot on the boy who was in a cowboy costume. Just then, Emma entered, wearing the same clothes she had on now. She was carrying a tray with 4 cups. The family, who had been all smiles earlier, suddenly became strained at her appearance. Emma didn't seem to notice, smiling cheerfully as they took the cups off the tray. As she turned to leave, she stared directly into the camera, and the smile on her face seemed to be sharing a secret with it. The scene changed. It was night. It was still snowing. The house was just a silhouette, though you could see a few lights on in the window. The music, which had been easy listening, now added a mournful bell gong as the scene showed the family bound with Christmas lights. Each were lying in a hole. They were struggling as you saw someone shovel snow on top of them. You saw the mother's diamond ring glittering in the light as her hand shook from the cold. The clip moved forward, and the family was now covered by the snow, except for their heads. Their eyes were glassy and fixed. Icicles were forming on their hair. The camera moved to show the mother. Her eyes seemed painted, just like a doll, but as the camera focused in on her, she turned to look at the camera. Her eyes were pleading. The clip jumped forward, and you saw a snowman behind the graves, for they were graves now because it was obvious the family was dead. Emma appeared next to the snowman, tying a scarf around his neck. She then turns to the camera and smiles, then puts her finger to her lips and goes, "Shh." Then she abruptly disappears. This time it is Nicole that gets up to shut off the projector as the screen goes white. Emma is still looking at it. "When Mr. Boogie adopted me," she said harshly, "that was my second adoption. They had adopted me first. They thought they couldn't have children. They had tried for years. I was 3 when they adopted me." She stopped, her mouth trembling a bit. "At first they were wonderful to me. I had everything I could want. Then when I turned 6, my mother found out she was pregnant. Robert was her miracle child, and then 2 years later she had Maggie." Emma swallowed, her voice becoming more bitter. Things changed for me after that. Suddenly they didn't want me now that they had their own children. I could see it in their eyes that they wished they could return me like I was some broken appliance. Harry's horror about what he had seen faded. He looked at her sympathetically, totally able to relate, even though the Dursleys had never wanted him. In a strange way, though, he wondered if he was fortunate. It might be harder to have been loved and then not wanted. I'm sorry, he said, then added, not wanting to leave out Nicole, for both of you. Emma smiled. It's all right. Mr. Boogie made everything go better. Is Mr. Boogie a man? Harry asked. Emma hesitated. No, he isn't human, but don't worry, he won't hurt you. All of us find our lives much improved after he adopts us. He is much better to us than our families were. Nicole nodded in agreement. Harry opened his mouth to ask another question, but Emma quickly interrupted him. I think you need to get back upstairs. Your relatives will be waking up soon, and we need to lock you back into the cupboard so they don't get suspicious. Wait, Mr. Boogie isn't taking me? Emma shook her head. Not yet, Harry. You need to watch the other movies, and then you will have to prove yourself. You mean I'm going to have to kill the Dursleys? Emma nodded. Yes. I don't think I can, Harry admitted. I'm flattered that Mr. Boogie wants me, but... Emma shushed him with a wave of her hand. Listen, Harry, don't worry about that now. We all felt the same way. All you need to do right now is watch the movies. I think you'll find that they will help remove your doubts. What will happen if I don't want to do it? Harry asked worriedly. What will Mr. Boogie do? Emma smiled. You know, Harry, that has never been an issue. Whether everyone has doubts at first. I had doubts whether I could do it, even though by the time Mr. Boogie appeared to me, I hated my family with every inch of my being. However, those doubts gradually faded away. I realized that if I wanted to change my life, I had to do this. Mr. Boogie doesn't just choose anyone. He knows what kids need his help and who will welcome him as their new guardian. Harry followed Emma up the stairs. He was surprised to see the sky lightening. It would be dawn soon. Before Emma locked him in the cupboard, she put a hand on his shoulder. Mr. Boogie chose you, Harry. Remember that. Of all the kids he could have chosen, he chose you. The cupboard clicked behind him, and Emma shut the vent, leaving Harry alone in the dark to mull over what he had seen.